Alright, so now let's take a look at rigid bodies. So what are rigid bodies? Well, rigid bodies enable our game objects to act under the control of physics. So let's go ahead and create a cube. I'm going to go up to Game Object, Create Other, Cube. I'm just going to go ahead and move it to my scene here. And I want to make sure that my camera can see it as well. It's a little bit off, so I'm going to go ahead and move it a little bit closer. And there it is. Alright, so let's go ahead and add a rigid body to our cube. So with your cube selected, go up to Component, Physics, Rigid Body. And now we have a rigid body tab under the inspector panel. Alright, so for mass, this will adjust the mass for our object. A higher value means it's going to be heavier, and a lower value means it's going to be lighter. So let's go ahead and change this to a 5. Now the drag adds error resistance to our object. So whenever it's moving, it's going to apply a drag to it right now. So let's go ahead and change this to 1. Now for angular drag, it's the same thing as the regular drag, except it's going to apply it when it's rotating. Our object is rotating. Alright, then we have use gravity. That's pretty self-explanatory. If you uncheck this, it's just going to stay in that one position. So let's go ahead and check use gravity. Is kinematic, it's used for animations. So if our object has an animation applied to it, it's going to go ahead and use that animation to move our object rather than using the physics-based movement. Then we have interpolate, which basically determines the jerkiness of our object moving around. Then we have collision detection. Right now it's set to discrete, basically meaning it's going to collide with any type of other collider in our scene and bounce. So we have it set to continuous or continuous dynamic. That's used for fast-moving objects, things like, cannonballs or cars or aircraft, or anything like that that's moving fast. So we're going to leave it on discrete. And then finally we have constraints. These are pretty self-explanatory, but you can freeze the position or the rotation based off the axis that you want. So you can select either one of these and freeze it in that position or the rotation. So let's go ahead and hit play and see how it works. I'm going to go ahead and raise this up first and hit play. Now the box falls and it hits the ground. Since the mass and the drag is set pretty high, it's not going to bounce around a whole lot. So let's go ahead and change the drag to 0. But before we do that, let's go ahead and hit play. So we're going to change this to 0 and we're going to change this back to 1. Now let's go ahead and hit play and see how it looks. Alright, so you can see they kind of bounced a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and raise it up a little bit higher so we have more of a force applied to it. Nope, still not. Let's go ahead and raise the mass up to 5. Now let's go ahead and hit play. Alright, so let's go ahead and rotate it a bit. Alright, there we go. So now it starts bouncing around. Alright, so that is the basics of using a rigid body in your game. Rigid bodies will help you create some very nice physics-based animations. And we're going to be applying some animations using the rigid body in our next video using constant force.